irony is we're calling it the Community Trust Act, but we're actually weakening a community.
I guess somewhat of a secret voting session last night that this bill was brought before that people were not aware of. I mean, we still had voting going on the floor here, and one of the committees is out there having a voting session that this bill was brought before that people were not aware of. And so now it's on the floor, first piece of legislation that we're dealing with. You know, again, we need at least some time to take a look at this and prepare some amendments for it. As like I said, it's extremely controversial.
Thank you very much.
Voting session. Was law enforcement there?
I'm unaware as to whether law enforcement was there.
We're there again. You know, we've had 2 days of advocacy groups marching out on Lawyers Mall, and all of a sudden we get a bill that's fast-tracked yesterday. We didn't even take the time I mean, we still had voting going on the floor here, and one of the committees is out there having a voting session that people were not made aware of. Now, you know, again, if the advocates were made aware of, that even says something in itself. The fact that the opponents of the legislation were not notified of the voting session. I assume that it was not, you know, on the website, or was it on the website that there was going to be a voting session in the middle of our floor session last night? We are getting to the last part of this session, the last few days, and all of a sudden these bills are going to come in very quickly. And yes, the rules allow us an hour, but we should have a little bit more time to be able to prepare for amendments and evaluate these bills, and to just say that, hey, we can even move it to the next session, the afternoon session. Keep in mind, as soon as we adjourn from here, you know, we're all going to walk into committees, and we're all going to have voting, and then we're going to vote until the bells ring, and then we're going to come back again. It just doesn't give us any time to take a look at some of these highly controversial bills.
The irony is we're calling it the Community Trust Act, but we're actually weakening a community because we're not allowing our law enforcement partners to interact with federal law enforcement. This bill is reckless. It doesn't matter if they're arrested for murder, rape, running someone down, doesn't matter. In your communities, all your communities, doesn't matter. They're still not allowed to work with our federal partners. And if they do, they're going to be subject to actions against them. That's not only poor policy, that's reckless. You wonder why we have a recruitment problem, retention problem with law enforcement in the state of Maryland? Right, here's another reason. I pray that I am dead wrong and nobody's communities are impacted by this. But the statistics tell me I'm right, because it's already happening. To not be able to work with our federal partners is reckless ideology. And Mr. President, we had this voting session last night. I felt so uncomfortable with it because we didn't announce it. We didn't allow the sheriffs and the local law enforcement executives of the state to be involved in it, and we moved it through. And I would press the amendment because the idea that we want a fair and balanced and open dialogue is important. It's important to you. It's important to me. It should be important to all of us. Just because you have the supermajority doesn't make it right to move something without having proper examination by all parties involved, because this bill is going to affect all of our districts. The idea that we can't get more than an hour to review the amendments that were just done last night, which again, I left the voting session. I felt it violated the Open Meetings Act. I walked out. There was no public notice. State's attorneys weren't involved. Law enforcement weren't involved. Casa de Maryland was there. ACLU was there. For us to not be able to move and hold it till the afternoon, Mr. President, I would press that because I think genuinely we all want the best for our communities, and I know you do, and I know the idea that having these discussions are important because you've always allowed that open dialogue.
During that meeting, we actually asked questions of some people that were there. They did give some answers. So I'm not exactly sure why we can't special order this until later, when we actually had advocates on one side were actually asked questions and they were given the chance to give their answers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. We'll go Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not being a part of this conversation and being in another committee, Mr. President, I think even more so would give us more the opportunity to have the right conversations and maybe have the right and proper amendments so we can have those conversations. I'm not a part of JPR, Mr. President. A lot of us aren't. There's only a few. But having that opportunity to have a conversation and maybe talk to the good chair and have an amendment where maybe we can maybe just lessen the blow on this type of legislation, I think it would be maybe even fruitful, just having the opportunity. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to Senator from the 37th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to weigh on the body. I mean, these are real-time issues. Just this week, the governor drove all the way to Salisbury to be in a press conference where we were announcing the seizure of over 100 pounds of cocaine. 100 pounds of cocaine, 13 individuals arrested. I can't tell you the firearms, the illegal firearms that were arrested, and this was all organized, I can't even pronounce it correctly, the Jaleo, the cartel out of Mexico. The wire that was used was to phone numbers in Mexico. Now, you may say, well, how does that apply? Well, you're talking about telling law enforcement, creating these barriers. We've got real-time things happening right now, and this process and people understanding what's going on. If the governor's going to drive all the way to Salisbury and participate in a press conference for an event that was conducted by our sheriffs, this was all local police. This was all done by our county sheriffs, not Maryland State Police. This was a local issue. And the governor's going to drive all the way to Salisbury to take credit for this. But yes, there was some state money that went into the wire. I'm telling you, this went right to Mexico. This organization was so violent that there was a warning not to travel to Mexico, if you can remember, during spring break. That is the exact same organizations. Those individuals were being wiretapped out of Worcester, Wacomico, I don't know the other counties, but you know, these restrictions are going to affect those things, and they're happening right now, and that's why this is such an important issue and so important that law enforcement is involved and the federal partnership. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from the 42nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. If this were a House bill, it would be one thing, because it would come up on third reader this afternoon, and we could have amendments prepared to amend the House bill. But this is not a House bill. This is a Senate bill. If we push this through right now without the opportunity for amendments to be prepared, that's just not right. I would ask for a roll call on this request for a special order.